Good morning and warmly welcome to the webinar on the environment. On behalf of Regional Development Agency of the Ljubljana Urban Region, the organizer, and the Star Cities Partnership, I wish you all another successful day. And I'm sure that we will hear inspiring good practices also today. And hopefully you could use some hints from these good practices also at your daily work. Yesterday, we spoke about all three sustainable principles, the environmental, economic, and sociocultural aspects. While today, our focus will be more on only one of those, of these dimensions on the environment. As you know, many times we have challenges with finding the right balance between sufficient tourism development and protection of nature. Therefore, our speakers will try to answer the following questions. Can tourism play an important role of environment and heritage protection? Do we see tourism in the role of promoting the protection of natural ecosystems and biodiversity, as well as responsible behavior? Besides, we will also see or hear actually the initiatives that spend the tourism revenue on protecting natural environment. But before we go to technical tips, I would like to introduce also the Star Cities team that will take care of today's webinar so that everything runs smoothly. So Camille Chauvin from the lead partner, on behalf of the lead partner from France, Misha Novak, she's our external expert, and you will hear her with polls. But she has been supporting us on thematic issues. Then my colleague Katya Butina, she will be your technical or our technical host. And my name is Natasha Marshall, and I'll be leading you through the whole program today. We will have a similar structure than yesterday, two subtopics, sub-themes, so to say. In the first part, there will be tourism, the good practices will be presented in this tourism in the role of environment and heritage protection. This will be followed by a Q&A session, and after coffee break, good practices that will show events to celebrate the river and promote sustainable tourism. And again, Q&A session, and we will have also some polls to introduce us in in each of these topics, and also afterwards to get your feedback on a certain sub-theme. So Misha, I would like just to give you the floor to launch, or the mic actually, and to launch the first poll.
Thank you, Natasha. We'll be having 5 polls all together, 2 for each of the topics, to start the topic and then to get some feedback on the good practices, as well as the final one at the end to wrap the subject up. So I would like you to, I think you can already see it. I would like you to choose up to 2 statements that best describe your view on tourism in the role of environment and heritage protections. So 2 answers are possible. So please do so. I can see there are 30 of us signed in the webinar. Majority, 67% of you believe that tourism, when developed, of course, and managed in a sustainable way, can play an important role in environment and heritage protection. And then 38% said that yes, but many bad practices across the globe show it's not operational and responsible enough in time in managing the negative impacts before they actually happen. So these happen, and then we start talking about the issue. And then another 42%, the last one, I believe that tourism has also an important role in promoting responsible behavior and appreciation of the natural and heritage assets among the residents, which will also be the case today, especially through the events, the second topic. So quite evenly spread, and also 33% said that you do believe it can have a positive role, but only if we know, manage, and respect the caring capacity. So how many people, how many visitors in a certain area. So quite evenly spread, two possible answers. Yeah, it's a good starting point and introduction into the topic. Natasha, I'm giving back the floor.
Yes, thank you, Misha. So we are going to start with the first presentation. So I would kindly ask Masha Bratina to prepare. We are starting in Ljubljansko barje Nature Park, and Masha Bratina will present us the thematic trails in the nature park, which are equipped with information boards and interactive tools that interpret flora and fauna of the Ljubljana marshes, as well as the geographical characteristics of the area. But before I give you the mic, I would just like to say to all speakers that I will after 10 minutes, I will tell you that there are only 5 minutes left. I know that all presentations are very enthusiastic and very interesting. That was the case also yesterday, but we were very long yesterday, so I would like to make it on time as much as possible. Thank you for understanding. Masha, the microphone is yours.
Welcome to all of you. I will present the thematic trails in Ljubljansko barje Nature Park, and we will start with the map. Katja, you can go on. As you can see, this is the map of the park, and with the red color, we have pointed out the trails, but these are only the trails that we have now in the park. But if we go on, we will see another map. In this map, you can see more trails that are also planned to be done in the park, not only the thematic trails, but also the bike trails that are planned throughout the whole area. Okay, we can go on. So if we look the landscape of Ljubljana Marsh Nature Park, we can see it's a quite picturesque area. We have a kind of mosaic of different habitats. Mainly these are grasslands, ditches, watercourses. It's a landscape where we have mainly farming here. It's a farming area. So a human being is very important. It actually has a big role in this landscape. Okay, we can go on. This landscape is somehow lying on the north part of the capital of Ljubljana. We can see also the Alps in the back, and the main river is the river Ljubljanica, which we can see in the central part of the photo. Now we are coming to the thematic trails. The thematic trails are all mainly in the lower part, but usually before people come to the park, we tell them it's the best way to go a bit higher up to get the view over the whole area. So this is also the photo from one of the hill, where we also have one important site for the visitors. Okay, we can go on. Here we have the photo from one of the first thematic trails. The name of thematic trail is Corncrake thematic trail or educational trail, which is mainly dedicated to the birds. So we have also a bird watch, as we can see here. This is the second one. It's the trail of the marsh windows. As you can see, we have beside the boards also kind of a plateau from which you can observe the springs. Okay, we can go on. Then we have the thematic trail in Beuke. This is the trail that was actually done or it was an idea from the local people to have the thematic trail here. A local school already walked around this area, and they suggested then to the municipality, which connected us in park, to prepare this thematic trail. And in the end, we really did a nice 6-kilometer circle thematic trail, which is also dealing with the flooding, which is a very common event here coming up every year in the Ljubljana marsh. Okay. And then here we have the photo from one of the last thematic trail, which is preparing and ending this year in Rakova Jelša, which is just next to the capital city of Ljubljana and quite close to the river Ljubljanica. It's also going to be a circle trail. And we will have mainly not classical infrastructure here. So there will not be classical information boards, but much different and more interesting. Okay. So we have the presentation of these thematic trails in our website. Right now we are preparing a new website. This is what you are looking now. We will also have an interactive map in which you can really quickly find the trail that you are interested in. Okay, we can go on. So how was the project with these thematic trails started? The first thematic trail started actually before the park was founded. This was already in 2007. The park was actually started in 2008, and it was done by the BirdLife Slovenia organization through one of the LIFE projects. And then later on, already mentioned the Beuke Educational Trail. It was actually done by the local school, local community, the research organization, and our park. And then we have the Iška River Nature Trail. This is the trail that leads along the river Iška. It's 13 kilometers long. It was also done together with local community of Ik, a research organization, and our park. And here was the main objective to present the nature and culture heritage of the area along the Iška River. This is one of the rivers that runs into the main river, so Ljubljanica River. It actually, the beginning of the thematic trail is in Iškin Vintgar, and the end is in the place very close to the place where the river runs into the Ljubljanica River. Then we have the Marsh Springs Trail. This was done by our park, local community Ik, and community Ljubljana, Municipality of Ljubljana. It was done in 2016. The main objectives were to present the complex structure of the ground and water of Ljubljana Marsh. All the visitors that come to the landscape of Ljubljana, we want them to know that what is the difference comparing to the other landscapes in Slovenia and in other places. And these are actually really the specifics of the ground and the water. And this is what we presented here in this thematic trail. And then we have the last thematic trail, the older trail, that is finishing this year. It's done in cooperation of our park and our research organization. And here we want to present the wet meadows, the hedges, and the biodiversity of the area. The wet meadows are actually the most important habitat in our park. So here we are going to make the biggest presentation of this in this part. Okay, we can go on. So how was this project financing? Actually, most of these thematic trails were financed by different projects. The first one, the Corn Creek Nature Trail, was financed by Life Nature Project. And then we have Poluba project, through which the last mentioned trail was financed. But here we have actually, these are the projects through which many other actions are done, and the thematic trail is only one smaller part of the project. This is in both cases, the Life and Poluba project. And then we have the next, the Beuke Educational Trail. This one was financed through Rural Development Project Leader, LAS, and the amount that was spent for that was 14,400 euros, and it was 50% financed through the project. The other half was financed through the local municipality of Vrhnika. Then we have the Ishka River Nature Trail. This was financed through the European project To Be Parks. It's European Regional Development Fund as part of the Mediterranean program. And the last, the Marsh Springs Trail was financed through the project Lakna, which is an operational program between Slovenia and Croatia. Another thematic trail was financed also in Croatia through this project. So this is somehow the picture of financing of all the mentioned thematic trails. Then we can skip to maintenance of all of the trails. Here we have a kind of cooperation between the local communities in Ljubljansko barje and Ljubljansko barje Nature Park Public Institute. So we somehow divide this.
Excuse me, Masha, 5 more minutes. Thank you.
Yeah. So how it is linked to the city. Accessibility of all the mentioned trails is by the city bus. Most of the trails are accessible by the city bus from Ljubljana, from the capital. So far, only one of the trail is safely accessible by bike. We have a big problem that so far we don't have safe bike routes, and there is a plan to get some. We're looking forward to this. Then all of the trails are accessible by rowing boats so far, but not from by the ships. Boats are not allowed to go to Ljubljanica River yet. So far only the rowing boats. What about the tourism, product and marketing? Ljubljansko barje Nature Park cooperate with the Ljubljana and Vrhnika tourism organization through education of the local guides, through presenting the new trails, and through offering the guiding service. Okay. We have also some packages, some guide tours available. We offer them with the park guides, and it is possible to pick one of the trail or to combine more trails or one of the trail with some sites in the park. Here at the bottom, you can also see the presentation from the new website that we are preparing in the park. Okay, visitors of these paths, we only have the number of the visitors that we guide on these trails. This is approximately 2,000 people per year. But here I have to point out that guiding service is a really small percent of our activities in the park. And we really don't have a lot of people and a lot of money dedicated to that activity. But mostly we guide a primary school, high school faculties and people that come on the events like Barjanka, the hike in Ljubljansko barje and so on. Okay. Here we have some photos from the guiding tours. And in the end, what are the challenges encountered and way forward? We encountered challenges like how to present the topic in the interesting way, how to finance the trail, who will maintain the trail, where will the visitors park, where will the visitors use the WC, where we can offer the visitors the info material, the news about the park. And together with local communities, we know that we need to make the entry points with the parking areas, toilets, info points, and interpretation centers. We need to connect the paths with the safe bike trails, as I mentioned before. We need to connect the paths with the safe river trails. And after we did that, we can start with more intensive promotion and marketing the trails. If we do this before, we will get more problems than solutions, I believe. So that's all from my part.
Thank you, Masha. You were on time. Thank you. I appreciated it. There are two questions, but we are going to answer them later in the Q&A session, if you all agree. Now, I would like to invite Žiga Gruden to prepare himself. Because he's going to present the next good practice. This is Ljubljanica River exhibition, which is dedicated to the natural and cultural heritage of the Ljubljanica River Basin. And the interactive exhibition has been designed to encourage the public to actively participate in strengthening the common responsibility for heritage. So the mic is yours. Thank you.
Thank you for the floor. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Super. So as you can see, this is an underwater cultural heritage project. We have a lot to cover, so let's dive into the presentation. Next slide. So the leader of this project was Municipality of Vrhnika. The expert project partner was Museum and Galleries of Ljubljana. So this was a heritage project, protection project with a strong cultural dimension and museum-focused approach. Next slide, please. So it was funded by EA and Norway grants, and we have to look at the context of Slovenia and Ljubljana, as well as Ljubljana marshes. So this is Ljubljana lies in the middle of the junction of the 5th and 9th corridor, transport corridor, and the way as we see the Ljubljanica is basically a communication line, a historical communication line. So next slide, please. So this is the context. We have a karst region and the Ljubljana marshes region, and River Ljubljanica is has both geographical area covered. So next slide, please. As you can see, this is a karstic river, and we call it a river of 7 names. And in Vrhnika, it has its final spring. So next slide, please. So as you can see, Vrhnika lies 20 kilometers southwest of the capital of Ljubljana, at the start of the Ljubljanica Springs. Next slide, please. So what is sustainable development when you have a nature park and a Ljubljanica river as a cultural monument of national importance and international recognition? Next slide, please. So the museum went in the past decade in the storytelling business. So we were telling this story about more than 100 years old scientific research. So this is really a big thing for this small municipality that has only 9,000 inhabitants in the urbanized area. Next slide, please. So in 2003, Ljubljanica was declared a cultural monument and of national importance. So you can see this is really important, and this is the logboat, the star prize of this project. Next slide, please. This is the funding project. As you can see, It's about €1,300,000. Next slide. This is the most important thing for us. It is a diagram of this project. As you can see, this is a circular diagram. It's not linear, and you can clearly identify the general stages. It's about identification, documentation, and museum communication. If it would be a linear structure, it would be a project with a start and an end. But because of its circular nature, this is basically a program, a sustainable program. So now I would like to invite you to watch the movie. I will read a museum communique regarding this UNESCO award that we will talk about later. So the underwater archaeological heritage has a great cultural, educational, developmental, symbolic, identity-related, and scientific potential, and also great social importance. So its integral preservation is in the public interest. The preservation of underwater archaeological heritage is an obligation to which Slovenia is bounded by the UNESCO Convention on the Protection of the Underwater Cultural Heritage, which acknowledges the importance of this kind of heritage as an integral part of the cultural heritage of humanity, and a particularly important element in the history of peoples, nations, and their relations with each other concerning their common heritage. Under Slovenia's own Cultural Protection Act, Heritage Protection Act, the integrated preservation of cultural heritage, regardless of whether it's underwater or on dry land, is realized through development planning and measures taken by the state, regions, and municipalities in such a way that heritage is incorporated into sustainable development, taking due account of its special nature and social importance. So, as you can see, this natural environment has had a significant influence on the development of a certain area. It is logical that if the conditions at a certain place benefit human being, we can be certain people utilize the area in the past. Since the human condition has not changed much over the past thousands of years, we can relive the feeling of awe and amazement, or admiration for certain landmarks and landscape values when we visit these places. So Slovenia already has a successful model which can and should be copied. The karst region has UNESCO Škocjan Caves Heritage Site Management since 1986. The development projects in the karst area are supported by scientific research by the Karst Research Institute, which is especially important when dealing with infrastructure projects. So this Ljubljanica river project is really important because it has developed the methods and the infrastructure that can be utilized in the future development processes. So Museum and Galleries of Ljubljana established a high standard for a Potočnik family heritage collection from Ljubljanica river that is presented to the public in Vrhnika. So, The prehistoric wooden finds from Vrhnika belong to the very top of the world cultural heritage. 40,000-year-old wooden point of a spear, almost 15 meters long logboat from the 2nd century BC, and of course the renowned 5,200 years old wheel with an axe. Next slide, please. So this was the project. It has 3 stages. This is the establishment of an exhibition center in Vrhnika Center is the first stage. Next slide, please. So this is the river exhibition where we do our programs. Next slide. In 2018, when the European Heritage Story started, we got an award from the European Commission and Council of Europe. Next slide, please. So what do? We try to promote the public awareness through exhibitions, public discussions. This is one thing that happened. It was an ecological catastrophe. The second thing, next slide. What we want to do is to promote the water and to reaffirm the science, the scientific approach. This is really important because of ecological disaster. People lost their trust in the institutions. So this is really important. Next slide. The next thing what we want to do is to show how the local community is being developed. This is an exhibition for the people of Vrhnika 2018, and it's presented the public infrastructure European project in Vrhnika. This is really important. Next slide. So this is our new public spatial planning workshop for the children and for the families. This is really important to teach children how to grow up and take care for their environment and to make sense about the urbanization spatial planning processes. So next slide.
Excuse me, Giga, 5 minutes left. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So this is the statistics. You wanted for us to show the statistics. It's for 2017, 18, and 19. 2020 basically is not relevant because of this COVID thing. Next slide, please. This is entrance fee statistic of individual guests. So, of course, when this exhibition center was opened, there was a huge increase the first year. And then this is our statistics for the next year. The next slide, please. This is the thing we are most proud of. This is the entrance fee for groups, for our programs. You wanted us to speak about our products, but we basically call them educational products. So as you can see, we have doubled the amount of visitors from groups with entrance fee every year. So this is a great economical success for us. This is our main idea, to educate the public, the school children and the environmental groups. The next slide, please. So this is the free of charge. Mostly it's some events, special events, cultural holiday or something. Next slide, please. So this is the scheme for cultural tourism as we see. It basically means that this is an established program that can support the future development processes, as well as it helps to educate and promote science. We promote science-based decision-making and political decisions made upon facts. As you can see, this is really important because the revenues can and should be invested in further investigation, research, and educational programs. This is what we do. This is what we are good at. This is only what it's visible for the public. Museum is a complex institution with its main function of informational and documentation activities. The communication is really important aspects, but this is a thing that the tourism sector can utilize. So what we can help is to help build infrastructure. Okay, so the next slide is, this is what we follow, because we are a cultural, not primary environmental organization. We try to follow these basic guidelines, you know. For us, it's really important, this United Nations decade on ecosystem restoration. This is a thing that we will follow, and we hope that this new EU Recovery and Resilience Facility plan for 2021 will make progress in this aspect. Next slide. So I have stated some state and local challenges. This is for the question and answer time after it. But what I would like to say is that there is clearly a big discrepancy between city of Ljubljana and municipality of Vrhnika. The municipality of Vrhnika has only 9,000 inhabitants and really small department. Basically, it's a one-man band who works for the economic development and for social activities. In regards to Ljubljana, where things are really important and professionally led. So this is where I will end my presentation, and we will talk in questions and answers period. Thank you.
Thank you, Giga. It was just on time. Thank you. So now we are moving to France, to the Haute Nature Park, which is a space to discover wetland fauna and flora. And it's benefiting from the proximity of the river Marne. So this park is inspired also by the natural landscapes of the alluvial zones. The attendance of visitors is closely monitored, and some areas of the park are closed during the birds' breeding season. But let's hear Antoine Chevry from Seine-Saint-Denis County Council. So the mic is yours.
Thank you. So hello, everyone. I will present the hotel park to you. I work as an animation manager at the departmental council, which manage the Seine-Saint-Denis area next to Paris. So we can move on to the next slide. Just to tell you, so on the left, you can see where the region of Paris is located. And on the right, you can see the localization of the Seine-Saint-Denis in red near Paris. So before I present the park to you, I have to tell you about the historical context of the Seine-Saint-Denis, which is very important for understanding the challenges the hotel park faces. So the Seine-Saint-Denis, and we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. The Seine-Saint-Denis was before a vast plain where it was easy to build canals and railroads. So the area was heavily industrialized. Many workers settled and factories and houses were built. And in the 60s, the area was deindustrialized, which led to a massive jobs loss that has not been made up for. So the unemployment rate is still high today, with 18.4 of the 64 years old being unemployed. And as a consequence, the Seine-Saint-Denis area was the French administrative area with the highest poverty rate in 2017, with double of the national average. So the massive industrialization also resulted in a reduction of green spaces. And we know that building green spaces such as parks allow people to have nature and space to breathe, especially in a very urbanized area. And it also allows people to have access to activities such as cultural events, sportive and leisure activities. So we can go to on the next slide. So since the 70s, politicians have responded to the lack of green spaces by building 8 parks in Seine-Saint-Denis. And in 1983, there were 0.8 square meters of green space per inhabitant in the area. And in 2009, there were 12 square meters of green space per inhabitants. The Haute is the most recently made park, which opened in 2008. So it's a renaturation park located on an untouched branch of a river called the Marne, and south of a canal built in the middle of the 19th century called the Shell Canal. Because of its history, the park has been preserved from urbanization, which is not the case in the surroundings. The hotel used to be a royal hunting area. After that, a psychiatric hospital let their patients cultivate food as part of their therapy. We can see the cultivation fields on the left. And in the 80s, the site was no longer cultivated and became an overgrown wasteland. The Seine-Saint-Denis Council gained ownership of the area in 1983. So we can move on. At the end of the 90s, the park project was designed based on 3 components. Firstly, the social component was to meet the needs of surrounding residents. The environmental component was to limit the impact of the building on biodiversity and to attract new species to the park. And the archaeological aspect was to take remains found into consideration. So residents, scientists, and naturalist associations have helped design the project. So on the next slide, yeah, you can see the aim. The aim of the project was the renaturation of the area by the wetland restoration. Actually, 1,000 years ago, the area was a wetland. A branch of the river Marne called the Grand Nou was running through the park, and the actual river Marne was located further north. So these old Grand Nou and Marne spots have shaped the land. And on this picture of a flood in 1983, we can see that the water is running through these old spots. So the Seine-Saint-Denis Council decided, with the help from a landscape agency, to restore the wetland by digging channels at the old spots of the Grand Nou and the river Marne. So on the next slide, you can see that the archaeological excavation have been done to know exactly where the old spots were. And yeah, on the next slide, you can see the channel spots. The channels are naturally filled by a water table under the park. Yeah, we can go to the next slide to see the channel spots. Yeah, and yeah, you can go again. Yeah, perfect. So the name Haute, just to tell you, means high highland in French, because the central part is the highest part of the park. So a few words about the building of the park. It took 4 years for the park to be created. 350,000 cubic meters of dirt were removed to dig the channels. A dock was built on the Shell's canal, and barges were used to remove the dirt. It would have been cheaper to use trucks, but it wouldn't have been in agreement with the ecological project of the park. The park was funded by public money and especially by the Seine-Saint-Denis Council. It costed 11.7 million euros. So on the next slide, we can see some photographs of the building. The project has been adjusted according to the environmental and archaeological discoveries. During the preventative excavations and during the buildings, archaeologists found vestiges dated from the Mesolithic, the Neolithic, and the Gallo-Roman periods. And an archaeologist was permanently on the park to be sure that workers didn't destroy any vestige. One of the most amazing remains was a child burial place dated from 800 before Christ. And some other discoveries dated from the Mesolithic led to the cancellation of a channel digging. And we can see the channel on the next slide. Yeah, again, we can go. Yeah, located at the blue arrow. So it was a channel. It would have been a channel, but it was cancelled. So we can move on. Another example of adjustment is the size of the woodland on the left side of the park. There is a picnic area next to the woodland. It was initially planned to be more larger, but we discovered that the Eurasian sparrowhawk was nesting in the wood. So just to tell you about the park, I will present the park. It is 65 hectares large. We minimize building to reduce the negative impact on biodiversity. So the woodlands in the west, which developed naturally, has been almost entirely kept. And two planes have been created inside it. One is a playground, and the other is an archaeological mediation site, which was created due to the many discoveries on the park. The large part between the channel on the right side of the park is an overgrown wasteland that have been kept. And there are 2 picnic areas, 3 shelters, and several benches in the park. So the overgrown wasteland is partially maintained using agro-pastoralism. So as we can see on the next slide, sheep, goats, billy goats, and cows graze in the area. The sheep are an endangered species which are preserved in the park. And two paths allow people to enter the wasteland. So the park is entirely designed to be flooded almost every year. So let's talk about flora and fauna. The park has been built to maintain the local species living there and to welcome wetland, woodland, and wasteland birds. Except for the agro-pastoralism animals, there are no species that have been brought to the park. In terms of flora, around 80 species have been planted, especially reed beds, as we can see on the photograph, along the channel. It was a way to attract birds, to decorate the park until other plants grew, and to straighten the channels. Naturally, the area would have been a complete woodland with a rather low species diversity. So on average, 75 species have been seen in the park each year between 2002 and 2006. Since the building of the park, trackings have shown a rise in the number of species in the park, peaking at 113 in 2016. In total, 172 species have been observed since the beginning of the trackings in 2002. Hey, we can move on. The hotel.
Excuse me, Antoine, 5 minutes left.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
The hotel is classified Natura 2000, which is a European label. This classification is due to the potential presence of some birds, and at the hotel, 8 species from this category could be found. 6 have been seen since the beginning of the trackings, especially the common kingfisher, which is seen every year. The European honey buzzer and the common tern can also be seen. Yeah, we can move on to the next slide. Other species that you can see on the park. We can move on again. Now, some few examples of the ecological management in the park that helps preserve fauna and flora. So the wasteland paths are closed to visitors during the nesting months from March to July. In the park, no natural materials are removed. Branches or grass that are cut are left in piles on the grassland, as we can see on the next slide. The woodland isn't maintained on purpose to let a dense layer of flora grow. So public intrusions are not possible for this reason. The channel's water is used to water animals that maintain the wasteland. So the water quality is checked very often. Grasslands are not cut. On the other hand, the road's edges are cut. It is more aesthetic, and it shows the public that the rest of the grassland isn't cut, but on purpose. Barges have also been placed on the channels to help the common stern nesting, and it was a success in 2019 when one has been seen nesting. So each year, scientists, partner of the Seine-Saint-Denis Council, make recommendations about the management of the park. We can go to the next slide. 6 observatories have been built to observe the channels and the wasteland. Binoculars have been placed and few landscape incursions were made so people can have a nice view of different parts of the park. In the wasteland, which is very dense, incursions allow people to see animals and grazing lands. 350,000 visitors come into the park each year. So since January, I've been in charge of the park animation. We will mainly offer an environmental education program, such as guided visits and activities related to fauna and flora to the public. An interpretive tour is underway. We will offer different sensorial and interactive tools to make the public discover the park in a different way. As you can see on the last slide, we have already installed acoustic cones like this one, which amplifies sounds of the forest when you sit inside. So we aim to double the number of visitors in the park. However, we don't want to further increase the number of visitors, as we need to maintain a balance between the number of people that are coming in the park and the well-preservation of biodiversity. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Antoine. Now we are moving from and traveling virtually from France to Lithuania. So Miss Rasa Smieliauskaitė, sorry if I didn't pronounce it well, from the initiative UPYNES will present a virtual tool which collects an archive of the memory of rivers, streams and banks of the Kaunas region and records the ecological situation of rivers and cultural science. So, Rasa.
Thank you, Natasha. You pronounced my name pretty well, actually. I will start with this first slide and just to say that the first one before that. Yes, thank you. So we are an independent initiative. So I think this is a main difference among the many participants here, because we are a small team and we are architects, cultural researchers, and our team is mainly working with the projects. So when we have a project, when we can develop the bigger impact in the city, but mainly it's just our local initiatives. And now we are participating with Kaunas European Capital of Culture 2022, and we have a 3-year project. So hopefully when we can plan further, we can have a bigger impact. So this, the website, the archive tool that you mentioned is also the tool that we developed together. Next slide, please. So this is just to kickstart the presentation. Like when I put in Google the name of Kaunas, these are the images that you get first. And you can see like the most of them, they have the river confluence, because the Kaunas as a city is positioned in very very unique position. It's the confluence of two biggest rivers of the country. And all the identity of the city was built on being there. And like the reason the city was founded in this place is of course because of the rivers, because of the transport, of the communication, of the economical connections and everything like that. But let's say 50 or 60 years ago, all this close connection of the city to the river just vanished because the big dam was built. And like it took maybe just one generation for the city to turn its back on the river, basically. And in some parts we already have these huge concrete banks that are, the river is really far away, not accessible, and the car streets are really disconnecting the city. Next slide, please. Yeah, here you have the cross section of the center of the city. So the river is there, and then you have like a huge concrete banks and a huge street, and then the city itself. But the natural, urban, and human elements in the city are always working together, because the city is not one element. The city is many layers that are working interconnected together. So like we see a sustainable and qualitative city life is only through it working together, you know, like to taking advantage of the natural resources, but also preserving them. And since we are, like I mentioned, we are a small team, so we are not able to do like all the hard measures to redesigning the banks and stuff like that. We are mainly working with the soft measures. And soft measures actually is the first step that we have to involve in these kind of cases, because soft measures are needed to educate the city dwellers, people, about possibilities, chances, and opportunities that we have around. And it takes some time to make this consensus that we actually need rivers and how we can work together. Next slide, please. So we have several methods to do that, like how we are working. So one of the methods is expeditions and research. So at some point we had a riverboat, and we were traveling around the area, meeting communities of the towns that are situated by the river, and all of them, they have amazing memories, and usually those memories are just like one generation old. Amazing memories, how the cultural and natural resources are coming together and building beautiful identities of those places. Next slide, please. And the other step is education. So education is not only we are bringing education, but we also taking education of those people who are still having memories and sharing. So here you can see the picture of a lady. She's sharing the history of her father, who was a boat maker and also the ferryman. And he was connecting two different towns on the different side of the river. And it's beautiful what kind of pictures they have, what kind of memories. And I think it's the best tool to engage if you want to reinforce this connection in contemporary cities. Like it's, you always can find something in the past, in history, that you can build on. You don't have to build the same, because the context is different, the economical reasons are different. But this is the thing that draws people also, and then they also can contribute to this collective memory building. Next slide, please. And also we invite and engage people into creative workshops. It's usually something very ecological through creative research, a minimal impact, but it also offers ideas how they can get back closer to the water, to the river, and how to get back closer, but not to do grand projects like just the presentation before, you know, just to let the river or water breathe, and how the culture can live by these kind of fluctuating wild natural forces. And next slide, please. So basically, we are working on building a local placemaking. So we are engaging local people, inviting them to contribute to discover and to build together something very sensitive, very local, and mainly it's to develop the attitude, you know. And through this, we are trying to create a network in our region, you know, like different communities or different connection points, but together they also have a connection with each other. And this goes like local, regional, national, and hopefully international, because when we started to work 6 years ago, we started on one spot, and it thought, oh, we have to do this spot because it's a city center, it's a very sad place, and we want to find a way to engage people into this place. But soon enough, we realized about rivers, it's never one spot, it's always a network, it's always a connection. So as the rivers are flowing through different countries, it's always what happens upstream, it always floats to the downstream, you know. So hopefully that's why we are participating here also. We would like to learn from different communities and keeping in mind that each community has their own way, their authentic approach and authentic methods to engage with their water places, but also we can learn a lot from each other. Next slide, please. So last year we started this webpage. It's called UPYNES. So UPYNES, it's like a created word, but the root of it is upes. It means rivers. Upes, like rivers in a network, let's say like that. It is in 2 languages, in Lithuanian and English. And since I'm not going to show the video that you can see here, I'm inviting you all to visit the webpage after the presentation and just to scroll around to see the video. And I have to point out that at this moment, this tool is still in development. At this moment, it only represents the project, the processes of the last year. And last year, we were engaged into discovering and researching the small streams of the city. And please keep in mind that these all small streams are in the city, like within the city boundaries. It's not out of the city. And all these places you can reach by public transport very easily, but they are so different. Like we visited 6 rivers. Next slide, please. We visited 6 rivers and they all have very different identities. Like some are super wild. It's incredible what kind of wild places you can find in the city. And some are very urbanized. You can see like concrete, DIY banks and stuff like that. And all these people, all these local people were invited to join the expeditions. And I'm saying particular expeditions, not excursions, because that was the main point of doing it differently. Because I think expeditions are more than excursions, because in the way you invite people to the expedition is you invite them to participate and to contribute to the process. It's not they are coming and listening to me or other presenter. And through these expeditions on these streams, our goal was to collect the things that we find on the way. So we all brought like a trash bags. And yeah, we found a lot of trash that we tried to pick up together, but also we found a lot of treasures, let's say, memory pieces. And these were like interwar bicycle wheel or stuff like that, natural things like horns of some animals. And yeah, thank you very much. And all these things have their own story. And we tried to show them in this virtual tool, not as a trash pieces, but as an exhibition pieces who are telling the story of the people, of the city, of the streams itself. So each of these pieces are photographed. There are more than 300 of them. And next slide, if you open one of the pieces, you get a map.
Excuse me, Rasa, 5 more minutes.
Okay, I'll try to
Thank
do it.
you.
You find the map, where it was, who found it, what kind of thing is that, and then you found a picture of it on location. And next slide, please. Also on the webpage, you can find the photo stories of these exhibitions. And so mainly the UPYNES LT is a virtual tool of our initiative, which collects and archives a memory of the river. streams and banks of Kaunas region and records the ecological situation of the rivers and cultural signs. And hopefully it will be expanded, and we want to involve more things into this. Next slide. So this year and the year after that, we are working on 3 programs. The first program is the river program, where my colleague is building the eco boat, which is manpower that it's like 4 people in the boat, and it's pedaled. And we are going to go with this boat in the city, around the city, and just to bring the message that it is possible to go in the river, it's okay to go in the river and to participate. Next slide, please. Another program is banks program. It's the banks are the places, like I said at the beginning, of the communities to have a contact with the water, and each community is very different. So we will try to talk with the communities and to help them to find their identities of the river. And next slide. And the last program is city streams again. Just like I presented, but this time we will try to go on expeditions to collect a memory, but we also will try to contribute, involving some land art and many architectural pieces, which will be ecological from the things we find there, and just to find the value and understand like what it is contributing to the city as a cultural tool also. Yeah, probably that's it, and I will be waiting for more questions.
Thank you, Rasa.
Thank you.
No questions so far, but we'll see, maybe 1 or 2 may pop up later. So now I would like to invite Misha again to launch the second poll.
Okay, the second poll is in a similar way as yesterday. We would like to ask you to choose one of the good practices you listened to that most inspired you in its role of promoting responsible behavior and heritage protection. So of course you always look from your territory, your personal view, and also the transferability of the good practices. This is what really inspires us, because it's more focused then. Okay, we have 20 people already voting out of 44. We're quicker because it's easier. Let's wait a little bit more. Okay, nearly 30, just a little bit more. Okay, let's see. There are 30 people out of 44 that are registered, voted, and they are pretty much, I would say, evenly spread. Ljubljansko barje Nature Park with its thematic past, the first presentation inspired you most, and then the Haute Natura Park, and the last one we just heard, and Ljubljanica river exhibition coming in the 4th place. So thank you for sharing your inspirations. And I think now we get to the questions and answers and back to the good practices.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Misha. Now, the first question is to Masha. Or actually, there are 2 questions from Lithuania. Are there any restrictions for farmers in the area of the national park?
Yes, there are some restrictions in the park. The park itself is divided in 3 zones. And the first zone is the most protected part. So also in this part of the park, the restrictions are the biggest restrictions. And then in the second part, there are less restrictions. And in the third part is like the area that is the last protected. So there are mostly no restrictions.
Okay, thank you. The second question is, how do you deal with the waste management? Romena said that it's quite a problem in Lithuania.
Yes, we have also a big problem with this, especially because of that. This is the park just in front of the capital. It's the open park. Everyone can enter it. It's not a closed area like in the example we listened from the France. So we are dealing this with our park ranger, but we have only one in the 130 square kilometers, not do a lot. We also have surface from local municipalities in the area of the park. We have 7 municipalities, so they help us also with this, but still we are not enough sufficient. We are trying to do this also through informing people how to act in the park through different medias. So far, this is all I think we can.
Okay, thank you, Masha. Another question just popped up because you mentioned the river route, and Camille would like to know, are they used a lot of, do people use a lot of canoeing or paddling? And is it possible to come from Ljubljana city center to the park by the river?
Yes,
but not by the boat, but paddling, I think.
Yes, it's possible to come with a paddling boat from the city center. But so far we don't have official entering points for the boats, also for the paddling boats. So there are some places where technically it's possible to enter the river and to go out in the park, but these are not like the official entering points, which are also observed through some public body. But people do this. I do this also with my family. It's possible technically if you want to go.
Okay, thank you. Now I have a question for Žiga. Vilte is asking, what about the digitization process of the exhibition in terms of finances, human resources, know-how, etc.? Žiga, can you unmute yourself?
Thank you for the question. Yes, the digitalization process is not really up to date in Slovenia. We are trying now to digitalize the whole exhibition. We do not know what the future will bring, so we are trying to do this on a top scientific and technical method. We will do this in this summer, I think. This is our plan.
Okay, thank you. Now we are going to Rasa. Antoine, it seems that you explained it so well that there are no questions. maybe later on. Then to Rasa, what are the main challenges trying to engage the local community?
The main challenges is, of course, to reach the community, because it's always easier to work there. There already exist a functioning community, so to reach them and involve into our works is very easy. They are very open, and it's the best example is Chanchi community for those who are familiar with that. But in other places, just there are no community. So to find the channels, how to reach them, it's the main challenge. So we are trying through online tools, of course, Facebook, sending messages to local libraries, and also with the help of Kaunas, European Cultural Capital Office. Yeah, so but I think this is a slow process, because last year was the first time we had these expeditions in the small streams that are suitable for all kinds of ages people. You saw it in the pictures that are like young families with the kids on the back, and really older people coming together. So now, this year I'm getting so many more messages about like when we will do that, like how they can involve and stuff. So this is spread through the word. So I think it's always a long process to involve local communities, and you cannot just invite them to the big event and say that everything is done. You have to start small and involve people, and then the people will invite other peoples.
So more bottom-up approach, no?
Yes, yes, definitely. Because in Kaunas, actually, we have a lot of approach that is brought up from the recent municipality, top-down, and it's not really working. And actually, it's kind of helping to develop a stronger community sense, because the communities are joining together to really fight some of these initiatives that are really brought top-down.
Thank you. And another one, what personally attracts you to work with the river topic?
Oh, I think
if you can share.
Yeah, of course I can share. My background is architecture, and I'm an architect. I'm still doing that on the side, but recently I'm actually working much more with these kind of cultural environmental projects. But we started this initiative purely out of sadness when we saw recent new developments in the city center, which were doing it like ancient ways, you know, like they were building a new residential quarter in the city center by the riverbank. And instead of taking already existing amazing recipes how to deal with the riverbanks, to do it in a human way, and not a human, but in the sensitive ways, they just poured the concrete all over it. And it was like very sad to see it happening in this time, you know. It doesn't have to be like that. So we realized we don't have a power to tell them to do differently, but we can educate the city community, invite them to remember the past, and to invite them to like to give the voice and to require those developers to actually put more effort into solving these kind of issues. Because when you feel the pressure of the people, when you feel the pressure of the buyers, potential buyers of the place that you are developing, you have to put some effort and money to develop it in proper way.
Okay, thank you.